The sound of the key rattling in the lock had never felt so alien. I froze in the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs, as I watched her struggle. The key, our key, the one she had held in her hand every day for 10 years, refused to turn. Her fingers trembled, the metallic clink against the lock sharp in the quiet apartment. "Why isn't it working?" she asked, her voice unusually high-pitched, as if betraying her panic. I changed the locks," I said slowly, keeping my voice even though my stomach churned. The words tasted bitter on my tongue, and yet I couldn't take them back. I had waited for this moment, though I didn't realize how much I would dread it. Her eyes went wide. Recognition, horror, disbelief. It all flickered there at once. "You what?" I stepped aside, letting the door swing open to a new reality neither of us could ignore. "I changed the locks this morning," I repeated. "You left me yesterday with him." The silence that followed was suffocating. She looked at me as if I had suddenly transformed into a stranger, a man she barely knew. And in a way she had. The woman I had married, the one I had trusted with my entire heart, was gone. In her place stood someone I barely recognized, a person whose lips had smiled at another man while my own pulse begged for answers. I didn't," she started, but I cut her off. "You didn't what?" "Fall for him. Leave me for his money." I watched it happen. My voice cracked despite my attempts at composure. I hated myself for shouting, but the pain had to come out somehow. Her hands flew to her mouth, and she shook her head. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't about money." I laughed bitterly, a sound that surprised even me. "Then what was it about, Sarah? Please, tell me, so I can understand the betrayal that's eating me alive." She faltered, her gaze dropping to the floor. For a moment I thought she might finally tell me the truth, the real reason she had abandoned everything we had built. Instead she whispered, I thought I could be happy with him. I thought, maybe life could be different. Different. That one word cut me deeper than any knife. All the nights I had lain awake worrying about our future, all the promises we had whispered to each other in the dark, were meaningless. Different. I closed my eyes, taking in a trembling breath. "So you risked 10 years for what? A man with more money than sense." She shook her head vehemently. "It's not just money." I opened my eyes and finally let my gaze settle on her fully. Her eyes, once bright with love for me, now seemed clouded, uncertain. My stomach twisted. I realized then that I didn't only feel anger. I felt grief. A sharp, hollow grief that settled in my chest like ice. "And now?" I asked quietly. "Now what? You think you can walk back in and pretend nothing happened?" Her lips quivered, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her expression. I don't know. I didn't mean for him to scream at me, or... I stiffened. "Scream at you?" She nodded, tears spilling over. He got angry. He thought I was hiding something from him. He threw me out." Her voice broke, and I realized she was shaking, a vulnerable girl beneath the confident facade she had worn to leave me. I stared at her, the paradox of the situation almost too much to bear. She had left, betrayed me for another man, yet now she was here, exposed and vulnerable. I could have felt relief, or even joy that I was no longer competing for her heart. But instead, I felt the weight of something darker, the bitter satisfaction of seeing her choices fail, mingled with a pain that refused to dissipate. "After everything," I said, my voice quieter now, almost resigned, "you come crawling back because your fantasy fell apart?" She flinched at my words, but didn't deny it. I didn't know where else to go. I made a mistake." I laughed again, a hollow, humorless sound. "A mistake," I repeated, incredulous. "You left me, Sarah. You chose someone else over me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences." She looked down, shame and regret etched into her face. For a moment the old Sarah, the woman I had loved despite her flaws, peeked through the cracks. And for a brief second, I almost forgot how deeply she had wounded me. Almost. "I changed the locks," I said again, this time more gently, as if the words themselves could offer some strange form of closure. You can't come back. Not like this. Not after you. After everything. Her shoulders slumped. I understand. We stood in silence for a moment, the apartment holding its breath with us. The sound of her footsteps retreating echoed down the hallway as she finally turned away, the weight of reality settling over her like a shroud. And as I watched her go, I realized something profound. The woman I loved was not coming back. Not fully. She was lost, just as I felt lost in the wake of her betrayal. Later I sat on the couch, the quiet of the apartment pressing down on me. I thought of the 10 years we had shared, the late nights talking, the mornings filled with laughter, the dreams we had built together. All of it had been real. And yet she had walked away from it. The grief was sharp, but beneath it simmered something else. A strange clarity. I understood now that love, even when deep and true, could be shattered by choice. And some choices, no matter how much you longed to forgive, were unforgivable. A week passed, then another. The apartment felt emptier than it had ever been. The absence of her laughter, her arguments, even her annoyances, leaving a hollow echo. And yet, in that hollow, I began to see the faint outlines of a future that was mine alone. One where I didn't have to compete with betrayal, where trust could be rebuilt on a foundation I controlled. And though my heart still ached, though memories of her haunted me in the quiet moments, I realized that the pain, unbearable as it was also a teacher. It told me something crucial, that self-respect, once lost in the chaos of love, could be reclaimed, that strength could rise from heartbreak, that even betrayal, cruel and personal, could mark the beginning of something new. One evening months later I found myself at the door again, not hers but my own. I traced my hand along the smooth wood, remembering that day when she couldn't turn the key. And I smiled faintly, not with joy, but with something better. Recognition. I had survived. I had endured. And I had learned that some endings, no matter how devastating, were also beginnings in disguise. Sarah never returned. Her life, her choices, her regrets, they belonged to her. And I finally began to belong to myself again.